The distress call spread across the void like a trembling cry carried by ancient starlight. For the people of the small world named Kirith, it was the final act of desperation. Their cities lay shattered. Their defense fleets were gone. Their leaders had exhausted every known route for aid. In the face of the marauders swarming through their territory, the Kirithi Council did what their ancestors would have called unthinkable. They sent a plea to the entire galaxy. The message begged for any ally to answer. Any power. Any nation. Any soul. Their signal did not specify terms. It did not argue politics. It did not even mention payment or favor. It simply carried a single vow that echoed with fear and resolve. Help us, and we will stand with you until the stars themselves fade. The Kirithi expected silence. Or worse, betrayal. In most eras, in most regions of the galaxy, the weak found no refuge. Yet the signal traveled on, passing through dozens of relay points that had never heard the Kirathi voice. It slipped through the fractured territories, through old trade networks, through abandoned listening posts. Finally, it reached a system that was still new to the galactic stage. It reached a blue world with turbulent weather, aggressive wildlife, hyperactive tectonic plates, and a reputation whispered with caution. The world was called Earth. When the signal arrived, it fell upon the desk of a lone officer stationed at a listening array on the far side of the moon. His name was Ian. He read the message twice before forwarding it through the chain. Within hours, it landed before the United Earth Council. The representatives examined the footage sent by the Kirithi. They saw the burning settlements, the broken vessels drifting in orbit, the frightened families gathered in ruined plazas. They saw people who had fought until nothing remained. Earth had been called many things by other species. A death world, a cradle of predators, a land shaped by storms and fire, a realm where nature never understood mercy. Yet humans had carved civilizations from that harsh soil. They had stood against freezing nights, violent beasts, and chaotic oceans. They had learned to endure, to adapt, to struggle against impossible odds. And in their history, one truth held steady. When someone cried for help, someone answered. The council debated for less than an hour. Then they sent a message back to Kirith. Hold on. We are coming. The Kirithi nearly fainted upon receiving it. They had expected mockery. They had expected silence. Instead, they received a promise. A promise from a species whose name most of them had never spoken aloud. Their scholars hurriedly searched what little data existed on humans. They found warnings. They found stories of resilience. They found examples of humans thriving where other species failed. The term Deathworlder repeated across, reports like a whisper of danger. Yet none of these texts described cruelty. They described intensity, determination, unyielding courage. Days passed. The Kirithi prepared to evacuate entire continents if needed. Their council hall still carried smoke marks from an earlier attack. Fires still burned at the edges of their capital. But hope now flickered among the ruins. The elders gathered, waiting for any sign of their new allies. It came not as a whisper, not as a scout, but as a fleet. The humans did not arrive with grand announcements. They came in formation, their vessels gliding through the debris surrounding the planet. The lead ship, a broad cruiser named Horizon, carried hull plating forged from alloys unknown to most Kirithi scientists. Engines glowed with quiet power. Shields shimmered like translucent armor. When the fleet began broadcasting identification codes, the Kirithi trembled. These were not mercenaries. These were not scavengers. These were soldiers forged on a death world. The Kirithi Council scrambled to arrange a meeting. Their leader, a calm elder named Rhino, stood at the central platform when the transmission connected. On the other screen, they saw the human commander. His name was Marcus. He wore armor that bore scorch marks from previous battles. His expression held focus and a trace of compassion. He studied the Kirathi Council for a moment before speaking. "God, we received your message. We know your situation. We are prepared to engage." Rhinal bowed their head, trembling with relief. "Your people are brave for coming here. We are grateful." Marcus did not respond with pride. He responded with resolve. "We help those who ask, not because it is easy, because it is right." "Tell us everything about your enemy," the Kirathi explained the marauders. A ruthless swarm from the outer territories. Their ships moved like packs of predators. Their raids were relentless. They did not negotiate. They desired labor, resources, and territory. When the Kirathi fought back, the marauders escalated. They destroyed city after city. They hunted civilians. They consumed entire regions without mercy. Rhinal ended the explanation with a simple confession. "We can no longer protect ourselves." Marcus nodded once. "Then we will stand where you cannot." That was the moment the Kirathi realized the humans had already chosen their place in the battle, not as distant strategists, not as cautious observers, but as shields. Within hours, human troops descended to the surface to secure evacuation zones. Their armor was thick. Their weapons hummed with energy. Their movements were precise. Yet they spoke softly to the frightened Kirathi families. They set up safe corridors. They offered water and food. They held the line at every attack. Even the youngest Kirathi noticed something uncanny. The humans rarely hesitated. They fought as if they had survived worse, as if determination alone could reshape the battlefield. The first true confrontation occurred at dusk on the second day. Marauder gunships descended over the northern plains, firing on villages filled with wounded survivors. Human interceptors roared upward to meet them. The Kirathi held their breath as the sky erupted with trails of fire. The humans flew with reckless precision. Their ships dodged blasts that should have destroyed them. They returned fire with discipline. The gunships fell one by one. Marcus led a ground unit during the battle. He advanced through smoke and shattered structures alongside his soldiers. Their helmets projected tactical overlays. Their armor absorbed impacts that would have killed others. Yet they kept moving. They fought not as conquerors, but as guardians. When a wave of marauders attempted to flank a cluster of Kirathi refugees, Marcus intercepted them. His unit formed a barrier, pushing back the attackers through coordinated strikes. The Kirathi watching from hiding places could scarcely believe the sight. The humans stood firm against an enemy that had shattered their own armies. After the battle, the Kirathi approached the humans with awe. Some touched the armor plates as if confirming the humans were real. Marcus simply removed his helmet and gave them a reassuring nod. "You are safe now." The next day brought even more chaos. The marauders launched a full assault on the capital. Their flagship emerged from the void like a monstrous shadow. Its weapons tore through old defensive arrays. But the horizon rose to meet it. Human ships formed a tight formation, refusing to yield. Lasers clashed in bursts of light. Torpedoes thundered against shields. The Kirathi watched through public screens as Deathworlders fought with fearless unity. Marcus made a decisive call during the confrontation. He ordered a drop team to board the Marauder flagship. They cut through the hull. They fought in corridors filled with smoke and shrapnel. These were the same soldiers who had shared jokes with Kirathi children. Now they moved like storms unleashed. In the flagship command room, Marcus found the Marauder leader, a towering figure armored in dark plating. The confrontation was short. Humans did not waste time. They did not gloat. Marcus ended the threat with swift precision. When the flagship's control systems fell, its fleet broke formation, Retreating in panic, the victory echoed across the surface. Kirithi citizens emerged from shelters. They looked toward the sky, where human ships drifted in victorious silence. Rhinal addressed the council with shaking hands. Today we witnessed something few species ever see. A force that fights not for conquest, but for justice. In the following days, the humans helped rebuild broken structures. They distributed supplies. They worked beside farmers, engineers, and healers. Marcus visited the capital, walking among the people he had fought to protect. Children followed him, fascinated by the scars on his armor. Adults bowed with quiet gratitude. Rhinal greeted him with a gesture of respect. Your arrival changed everything. You did not need to answer our call. Yet you did. Marcus smiled faintly. Hope matters. And when someone reaches for help, that hope becomes shared. Rhinal studied him. Your world is known as harsh. Many fear your kind. Humans are shaped by struggle, Marcus replied. But struggle teaches us to value those who stand beside us. We are not here to dominate. We are here because compassion binds species stronger than any treaty. Word of the victory spread across nearby systems. Neighboring nations approached Kirith with caution and admiration. A new alliance began to form, centered around cooperation rather than fear. And at its heart stood the humans who had answered the plea without hesitation. Months later, a ceremony was held in the capital's restored plaza. The sky was clear. The air carried the scent of renewal. Rhinal spoke before a vast crowd. We called for allies in desperation. We expected silence. Instead, a force rose from a distant world. A world of storms and beasts. A world forged by hardship. A world whose people have hearts stronger than steel. Humans came not because they sought power, but